Hello, everybody, and you're all very welcome to the third episode of the Four Masters podcast. This is the third episode that we're doing throughout the month of April. Already, we have had Barry Monaghan and Nicola Lacey on the Zoom call, and today I'm very happy to welcome former Four Masters and Donegal manager and current independent county councillor Tom Conaghan. Tom, how are you keeping?
Not too bad, Connor. Just
keeping well.
Keeping well and keeping out of harm's way if I can.
Bit busy at the moment. I suppose there's plenty of work to be done during lockdown now.
They are. We're on Zoom regular now. This week coming now, we have 5 meetings, 3 in the one day and 2 and one thing another. But you do what you have to do, Connor. Really, you know. Yeah. And I would be then, and part of the time I'll be in the farm, maybe from 6 in the morning to whatever time. Lambing.
Anything vital on the agenda to get done, or just tipping away slowly but surely?
Yeah, well, you know, like there's different things happening, like farming wise, is it, or
either or?
Yeah, well, Donegal Town, in my opinion, is going well enough at the moment. You know, like very happy with it, and just chasing around with the developments and one thing and another, and hopefully, you know, now that we're getting going, that we'll be getting the diamond renovated, the monument and whatnot, and that's another big thing. And we're doing a special thing down at the pier, hopefully, in the time to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have a long, I suppose, haul to get through. A lot of decades to cover from your time involved at Four Masters and within the GAA. For people who don't know, you were the Four Masters manager when they won their first 2 championship Donegal county titles in 1982 and 1984. Donegal manager from 1986 to 1989. You had a spell as Sligo manager and St. Noel's manager. So quite a long period and quite a successful period. Also not forgetting you were the man who brought Donegal their first ever All-Ireland title in 1982 with the under-21s. So we'll just crack on with as far back as we can, and that would be from your playing days with Four Masters in the 1960s and 70s, which was quite a different time from when you managed them, when they were quite successful as a player. When you were involved, they weren't as, I suppose, successful. You struggled on occasions to field 15 players sometimes. What do you remember about your playing days?
Well, I suppose maybe I wouldn't have been one of the stars on occasions like that, but I've been playing with stars, I suppose, at the time, like a PJ Flood and different other players that were in the club at the time, and we won a junior championship around them years, the 70s and 60s. And I would have got a trial with the county at minor level, but it was only just one game, because when as usual in Donegal them years, when the other players came back from college and one thing or another, they were always far ahead of what was the home-based players. But that was enjoyable, you know, like, and the only thing, I always classed the club as a great club. And I suppose maybe what made it as good as what it was, Connor, was the fact that we had a great support within the town and the surrounding areas. And there was games being played in different places, that there had been a lot of sharpness in it and one thing and another, as usual, Gaelic football. But that'll be my reading on it, you know, like, it wasn't easy, because a lot of work and players maybe that you would have felt could have been playing weren't, the fact that they'd go elsewhere to work. And but that had been the start of my time and football, really, you know, like, and being involved in the Bosco Club and training them, and quite successful at that level as well. So we were, and went then from strength to strength.
Yeah, there was a period also that did show that there weren't that many people in the town. There wasn't a big selection. Four Masters did struggle to field a team, because you had to, at one point in the 1970s, amalgamate with St. Noel's. I don't know how that would work today, but how did that work at that time? What do you remember from the period with St. Noel's?
Well, I would have felt, you know, like, I suppose maybe like some of the rest of them, I would spend most of the time on the line, sitting in the dugout. But no, the thing I would have put down to it at that time, Conor, would be the fact that between Four Masters and St. There was quite a few players that would have been good enough for any team, but it was the fact of possibly, and I'm only saying this, is a commitment really, and it's never too easy when you have a 2 or 3 or 4 clubs together, maybe trying to put out a team and somebody play. You wouldn't have the same maybe jizz or atmosphere and all the rest of it. But they've done their best, and the fact that I would say they were coming up against good teams at the time, like you're having St. Joseph's and St. Eunan's and all the rest of them that were amalgamated as well, and it wasn't easy. And as well, maybe when you needed players, maybe there would have been wouldn't be like now. There'd be so you may not be able to attend some of the games or training or anything else, and I would put it down to that. But it was a great experience, and yeah, you had some fantastic players at the time. Like it just didn't, I suppose, develop to what maybe we would have liked it to be.
Yeah, I suppose when you say they were a good team, but the fact they were up against a tough opposition, one of the main ones were Four Masters' biggest rivals, St. Joseph's, which was at the time the amalgamation of Ballyshannon and Bundoran, for people who don't know. But they won 7 county championships in 11 years. Was there kind of, did you envy them in a way? Because I think at one point they had 11 county seniors. Did you envy them in a way? And that's what kind of made Four Masters grow strong to get to that level to compete with them?
Well, I would have felt, Conor, maybe that there were different style of players. Because you'd have, players like Martin Carney and different other players that have been away in Galway and universities and were coming back for games. But they would have been very committed to training, and they've been very committed to being together. And players that would have been playing for Ballyshannon and St. Joseph's or Bundoran would have amalgamated well to the fact that there would be a rivalry between them as well, club level, and that would have meant maybe that there was more of a jizz or a bite in it for to get success. And I suppose at the end of the day, as I say, success breeds success, and players coming in from different counties playing for them, which you didn't really have in Donegal, but not making any excuses. They deserved their victories and all the rest. It was very good.
Yeah, Four Masters' first county final came in 1976, where they, I suppose, one way to put it, they got hammered to St. Joseph's that day. But then there was a sudden growth in the club in the late 1970s. There was the under-21 team managed by Donald Monaghan in 1979, and that kind of kicked off the glory. That was the first county title to come back to Four Masters. Could you see a sudden change within the club at this time? More people staying at home, more people playing for the club. More players playing at county level. There seemed to be good things to come in the future for Four Masters.
I would agree with you, Conor, on that end of it. It'd be the fact too, probably that you would have having the leadership of Donald for his experience of playing for the club and for the county, and one of the greats. And the other thing would have been he had a good way with him about. I would say mainly looking after younger players, and would love to take them on by one. And it possibly was, in my opinion, a change because, defeat doesn't help all the time on one thing or another, and getting belief into players, and I would say at a certain age, that would have happened in that time. And even looking back, players can speak about it, and I think it's very heartening. I think that's what younger players need. Is to be something really thought of, not spoiled, but thought of, and given a chance. And I think that's what they were getting as well when Donald was there.
Yeah, talking about Donald, I suppose he was your closest ally at the time when you were manager. He was kind of your assistant manager. He was your trainer, a close friend of yours. And a lot of players would give huge credit for what he did to the club. What was the relationship between you and Donald as manager and assistant manager? What did you rely on him for mostly?
Well, I suppose one of the things, Conor, we could start off in saying we were related. I suppose maybe that helped matters a little bit as well. Cousins, and Donald, in my opinion, was always very easy to get on with. And in actual fact, it was him that suggested, came to me, and I'm not saying it was hard to get or anything, but pleading with me. And I said to him, my experience is management. I don't have a problem, but he says, that's what we need as a trainer. And we need somebody that's going to people toe the line, and he says, including myself and all the rest. And he says, I'm coming here now, and he says, I haven't got a county championship medal. Well, I says, it's funny about it. I says to him, that's one thing I can't promise you, but says I can try my best maybe if I decide to go. Well, he says, I think you don't have to decide, you should decide. And this is where it came from. And, he had been a great leader. He had his own ways of going and all the rest. But I would say probably one of the best trainers in the county to do training himself or to train with himself. I would have saw different occasions that I would have met him and even in his own house coming home, and that he was only coming home from Morva. And I would ask him, what are you doing in Morva? He says, I'm training on your own. Well, he says, sure, if you have to train, you have to train. You don't need a whole big group. And that was one of the things about him. And that's where I would have started off from as such, and it was a learning thing for me as far as management was concerned. And of course, he had been in with the 21, as you said yourself, and minors and all the rest. And I just felt then that I had to go looking and searching for somebody that could give me advice on my involvement or getting involved. And I just went down the line of contacting a friend.
And so it essentially was Donald that got you to take the job in 1980. What do you recall about did you know many of the players at the time? What do you recall about the first training session or first meeting with the player? Was there things that had to change, or do you think you came in, what was your attitude coming in kind of to the role as manager?
Well, to be honest, I would have felt, players deserve respect no more than a manager or a club or whatever the case may be. And this was one of the things that I would have to get over. And I would have having some of them players that were there in my time at Bosco level and training them. And you were always getting, is it going to be the same as when you were in the Bosco, one of the meetings or get-togethers we had? So much, probably a little bit different today. It'd probably be more discipline and less fun, plenty of fun outside of training and all the rest, but commitment would be a big thing, and time, and you weren't turning it into kind of like a school or anything else, but the whole thing you had to do, you had to, not speaking about myself or anything else, but you had to try and change the system, to introduce something new and something different. And lo and behold, I'd have to say that the players fed into it. And the other thing was that it wasn't really me, because I couldn't go out and play for them, and I wouldn't even think about it. And I would feel that a lot of them would have respect for the fact that it was laid on the line to them. And the other thing was, I remember even asking a couple of players about coming into a panel that were playing junior football.
Yeah.
And the first thing one of them said to me, he says, Jesus, Tom, he says, do you think that I'm going to play senior football? He says, and times I can't get on the junior team. Well, I said to him, say, that's up to you, and I suppose it's up to me as well. And you get a chance if you're anxious to do it. And I'm not going down the road, Connor, off names and all the rest.
Yeah.
But it brought me thinking. And I said to him, and he says, what are the chances? I said to him, the chances are you'll get the same chance as anybody else, whether you're a junior or what the case may be. And says, I'm looking for players that have prepared to wear the jersey and die for the jersey on the day. And I feel you have it, and other players around you have it, and it's only a matter of getting it out. And lo and behold, it's probably the fact that it was a very spirited team. People would turn around and say to you, maybe even on the day, even when you got that final, they'd say, Jesus, same old story again. But I think, like when we started winning games and players were getting respect, and there's the one thing that I felt about any of the teams that I had, and I tried to build it into them, that they would always respect the people that were supporting them or paying to get into a game. And I think that's most important. I think a lot of that has gone away at the moment. You become a member and you do this and do that. And I feel, that's not the right thing for public or for players that, that people are going out to go out of their way to support on the day or in the game. And that's kind of where it started off from.
So you're saying it was to build it to more than just the team, it was to include everyone, kind of build a culture within the town to make it successful. You were also, I suppose, at that time, a lot of players would say you were known kind of, you pointed out there as well, for your, strict regime, kind of tough training. You didn't suffer fools, lightly, wanted players on time. You were very hard on that. So you were players on time for everything and given everything for the jersey.
Well, going back, I suppose, a little bit, Conor, I suppose I could say it to you, the fact, I don't make any bones about it, because I think if you want to do a little bit of learning yourself, you have to, you have to check things out. And I say to myself after I'd said to Donald, I'll take it. Well, he says, you get whatever help you want or do whatever you want. And he says, we'll obey it. He says, I'm captain. And he says, that's the way it'll be. And the first person I turned to was my friend in Kerry, which I admired him, to be the greatest. And I felt if I could speak to the greatest, maybe not was he going to make me the greatest, but at least I could pick something from him. And speaking and all the rest. And I would have to say, the first time I met him face to face would have been in your father's hotel, that we had a dinner dance one night. And I happened to come down the street hoping that he'd be there. And,
just to clarify, Tom, just to clarify, I suppose for people, the man you are referring to is Mick O'Dwyer, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, Mick O'Dwyer.
Yeah.
Just to clarify that. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry for that, Conor. But that was my aim. If I was going to try to be the best or want something for Donegal, for Four Masters, or for the players, or for the supporters, I was going to have to try and speak to the best. And lo and behold, that night I met him, and he says, I think Mick O'Dwyer's looking for you. And I says to myself, Mick O'Dwyer looking for me in the town. But I knew he was coming all right, so that was the start of it. And he came to a few training sessions all right, and we're in contact every week. And I would have went to Dublin to meet him for tactics and speaking and all the rest. And there's one thing that he always said to me. He says, if you haven't discipline within yourself, you can't expect the team to be the same way. And he says the other thing is, he says you'll have to sort out training the way you feel you want it and the way I feel you do want it. And he says I give you every help I can, and I spend as much time speaking to you. And we had long phone calls and all the rest. And one of the things was different age training and different training on the field, and one thing and the other. But I would have felt that he would have been the man that set me right as far as that was concerned. And I suppose some of the players as well that would have been, in the All-Star game, like Dolan and ones like that, would have known like the road that I was going to go down when it was Mick O'Dwyer was anyway involved, And he said to me, get a good team around you, get a team that thinks the same way as yourself, management end of it. And, the whole thing about it was the fact that I would have picked what I could pick. And some of the people that I picked, wouldn't have been maybe thinking that I was going to pick them as such. And, well, Donald was one of them, and I had Michael Lafferty and Sean Ferter. And you're just looking at 3 county players or Ulster players or stars. And the other thing then was Mick O'Dwyer. And of course, I would be wrong in saying if I left out their physio, John Cassidy, and our other trainer, Eamon Harvey. And of course, the man was only arriving in town, I think, when I approached him, and I suppose he didn't know what to think of me approaching him, but I did. It was Dr. Kennedy, which was a great help. And the other thing was it was one thing that I always felt in football: if you have the right people around you, trainer, physio, and doctor, the injuries will not be long clearing up.
Yeah.
And that was one of the main reasons. And Dr. Kennedy would have some great contacts and on that end of it, and you needed it as such. But the other thing was as well that they got a taste, they got an appetite, and they saw that you spoke a little bit about discipline there. I make no bones about it. I was called different things, and the disciplinarian. But I don't mind that, because I think that's where I went or where I was going. In actual fact,
so you didn't mind if players fell out with you. It never kind of crossed your mind that, well, the players could rebel or go against you. You always knew you had the backing of the team, backing of the club.
Yeah, I always felt that, because I wouldn't have singled out players, and maybe some of the times players would have felt, if they stepped out of line, if they stepped here or there, and they soon got to know that I would know. Nobody would have to tell me or anything else, because I would know. I would know by their training. I mightn't take their training every night, but just watch some occasions, and then I would decide, right, I think maybe you should be putting in a little bit more.
Yeah.
On the pitch than in nightlife and all the rest. But I wasn't tramping down them. I would say there was maybe girlfriends and families and things not all that happy with the way they had to conduct themselves eventually. But I think it grew on them, and it grew on the players as well, that they were not so great, in my opinion. They were like a family. And as I said earlier, like it wasn't Conor me really, to a certain extent. I was only guiding the thing. But I would have him to go down that road if I was going to have anything to do with Michael Dwyer. Because Michael Dwyer says to me, he says, the gate closes 15 minutes before the training starts. The time to change and all the rest. And if they want to say something or represented by their captain or whatever the case may be, fair enough. And then anytime after that, the gate isn't opened and you don't climb over it. And I think someone might have found that out as well. And the thing, but it wasn't Conor either that we had any big show of dressing and training and all that kind of stuff. We done most of our training in Town of Whalley. In actual fact, I won an All Ireland in '82, as you say, and the 2 championships out of training out there, because we didn't want to be abusing the pitch in the town, and it was quite soft before. They did a lot of work on it, and you can look back at it now, and some of the players maybe would have presented, like players being dropped and things like that, and then that they would have having a meeting, and maybe captain or whatever the case may be would approach you and do this or that, and but I wasn't hunker sliding or trying to get out of it or anything else. I met them head on. I explained what I expected, and I explained that even players were dropped to the team or suspended for a couple of weeks or whatever the case may be. When they were coming back, they were getting the same chance as any other player, and they may even have just walked straight back in again. But it was just a fact. Everybody knew what was happening, Conor, and where they were going and what they were doing.
I remember a story. I won't say the name, but I remember a story where someone told me, an ex-player of yours said he was late for a bus for 10 minutes. You were playing a vital league game against Kilcar, and he was late to the bus for 10 minutes, and you didn't start him. And I said, all right. And he goes, and I was the captain. But I won't say who it was. But at that point, but that just showed that you put everyone on equal power. So you did, like, there was no special treatment or anything like that. But I want to talk about, I suppose, your seasons as manager of Four Masters. Your first season in 1981, you won the Division 2 championship, and you went the whole season undefeated. you got all the way to the county final, and that was the only game you lost that year. You lost to Ardra. And then the following season in '82, I suppose that was the real milestone year. You defeated Kilcar in the final by a point. What do you remember about that game, or what do you remember about them seasons in general?
Yeah, well, and saying that, Conor, you know, like I would have to say that it was very disappointing. But then again, you know, possibly when you look back on it, that maybe had to happen in '81. The fact that we did, you know, get to the final and got beat. I mean, we were good enough, and there were no big problems attached to it. There was a little bit of rumblings within the team that maybe somebody should have been playing or somebody should have been dropped or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But that was the case on that one, and I would have felt, you know, that we were going quite well. But when I came back then and we made it the whole way again in '82, which a lot of ones felt that we didn't, that it wasn't going to happen, but we got there anyway. But the first thing that I noticed was, and I said to myself, that has been trying to be a bonus for them. I looked over at a banner on the far side of the McCool Park and I said, Kilcar banner, we're no Kerry joke. Well, I mean, I felt, you know, like, and I said to the players, you were here last year, you are here now this year, and they're criticising the man that has put everything behind to give to us and to give to me to try and win a championship. And I says, you know, not alone for me, not alone for your club, not alone for the area and the town and all the rest. I think it's a day to go out and won it for him. And in actual fact, he was that anxious. And I was standing in the hotel in Donegal when we came back, and all the rest was a concussed player. And
Donald came off at halftime injured, didn't he?
Yeah, I had to take him off. He just didn't know where he was.
Yeah.
And it was just too dangerous at that stage. But the first phone call I got was to congratulate me on us winning the championship from Mickledwyer. And awfully beat them the same day. So I thought, I says, and I told that to the players, I says, now I'm the manager, but he's the manager as such, as far as I'm concerned, to me. But that's what I remember on that one, and I think maybe that might have helped. But on the other hand, it was a kind of a hard thing to take, Conor, the fact that no one doing so well and wondering what was going to happen. Maybe things changed a wee bit for the first 5 or 10 minutes. Lost a wee bit of grip on the thing as a manager, but I was so much embraced of what was going to be the outcome of, and Dr. Kennedy walked up alongside of me and he tapped me on the shoulder. He says, concentrate, boss, he says. The captain's going to be perfect. So from that on then, I kind of got more attached into the game and saw maybe that it was there for us, you know, and it was going to be close and all the rest. But, you know, the amount of people and fans, supporters, and fellas that would have played down through the years, you know, when you're after the game was a big thing on the field, number one, but then when you would have met them near the dressing room or when you got back home, was the fact that you see the tears coming out of their eyes, you know, that they never got a championship, never won a championship, and it was great that it was the first. And to say that, you know, like even since, I mean, managers that are in, were in Four Masters and the club, chair people and trainers and physios and all the rest, you know, they all played a big part. It wasn't the fact of, you know, it was an end of an era. It's not, it probably, you know, like every team, in my opinion, or every club, Conor, goes through these things. Four Masters may be going through it a little bit at the moment. Maybe Four Masters have lost some players that couldn't afford to lose like other clubs and that give all they had to the club, which I'm really sure that they did. I watched them playing and all the rest, and you know, they bent backwards. And the good thing about them, a lot of them now at the moment, and one thing or another, even fathers or fellas that would have played after that, after we won the championships, would have been playing still, you know, or whatever the case may be, and that was great. But at the end of the day, you know, I suppose everybody for their own club, but I think Four Masters is a great club, and I think they will come again. It'll not be too long till they do come again, with the younger players now coming through.
And I suppose you talked there about the emotions of winning the championship. I suppose the big plus about winning the championship in '82 was you just got to, the following year as a reward, to take a trip. The whole club got to take a trip to the US, take a trip to New York in '83. What do you remember about the holiday then? Any mad stories or mad events from '83 in New York?
Well, I suppose maybe what I don't know what way you'd say it. What's in the dressing room stays in the dressing room. Whatever's the club stays in the club. But you know, like I would have to say, possibly that was my own doing, with the help of individuals, travel agents, and good supporters in the town. I promised the team a trip to America if they won the championship. I made no bones about it. I said publicly in the past, because I think they deserved it, because those number one, listening to me for the 2 or 3 years, I mean, they deserved something. But they really enjoyed it, and I make no bones about that either. And, you know, like for any team, I think we spent 19 days, I think. And I could safely say, if I went back on records, I would say they might be the only team that trained at least 14 times.
You trained them in Gaelic Park, was it, in New York?
Yeah, and there would have been, well, I suppose maybe where some of the funny things might have went on was in Atlantic City, with the slot machines and different things. There was nightlife in it too, and there was no big harm, because it was all bottles of bud really that I didn't know anything about, because I wouldn't be into that end of it, and I had no problem. They're right to enjoy themselves as such. But I mean, for them to talk, I know it might have been a little bit hard on some of them, because I think 2 or 3 of the players approached Dolan halfway through the trip. Jesus, do we come here to play football, or do we come here to enjoy ourselves, or do we come to train? And he says, well, he says, you can put the 3 things together. And maybe I think one of them might have said to him, Jesus, you know, like, gee, we better go home. And I spoke to him then. I went and spoke to the player and all the rest. And I told him, I said to him, it's for your own benefit, and for you to enjoy your trip and one thing or another. And that was the one. But I would also have to say as well, there was no team better looked after in America and followed up and all the rest. And I know there might have been, I tried to see as much as I could of the other side of it, and I think I did. But as long as everybody went and came back safe, and you know, it was a big thing for me too as well, for the discipline end of it, that they did make an effort to train. I know.
And what was the purpose for training on the holiday? Was this like pre-season, or what was the purpose of training in America?
Well, I think maybe I was too proud to lose games in America.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
especially playing against Donegal and teams like that. I think we won 4 and drew 1. So I think it wasn't a bad record with what everybody says, them enjoying themselves from one thing or another. And I think they deserve to enjoy them, because they didn't really step out of line at home or anything like that, you know.
Yeah, and then I suppose '83 wasn't a great year, but then '84, centenary year, is came back, has won the championship again. That turned out to be your last season with Four Masters. Was that always your intention, that '84 was going to be your last year and you were going to step aside then? Well, or was it ended on a high?
To a certain extent, you know, like I remember Tommy McCourty saying after we won the championship in '84, he says, well, I'll tell you one thing, I'll hardly be around and you'll hardly be around to win the next centenary one. And I mean, that being the centenary championship, it was great. But then, which I don't dwell a terrible lot, and one thing or another, we had a what do you call it, a bit of a problem as far as that year in '84. We won the championship all right, but then on Christmas '84, I had his son killed,
Kevin.
David. And I could just make you think and all the rest, and I didn't really have the Connor, I wouldn't have really having the appetite as such, and I wasn't making any big deal about it, but I felt, like it was just, he'd been there, he'd been with the players, with the county and club, a couple more of them, and used to travel on the bus and one thing or another, as scouts or whatever you like to call them. But I just felt, like that I give it all I could give it, and that I had to step back a bit, and it wasn't an easy thing, like it. I suppose maybe 23rd of December and buried on Christmas Day, and it just stayed with me, and I didn't want to be hampering players or club or anything with it. While everybody was so good at that occasion, I must say, and couldn't have been better as far as I was concerned. And like while I hadn't just appetite, Connor, and I felt I'm not going out there just to prove this, prove that, and push myself and push other ones. And it doesn't work. Football doesn't work like that. And I just felt then like stepping back. But then being working for a company in Sligo at the same time, I was being tortured more or less to get involved with the Sligo team. And I suppose maybe that took up a bit of time as well, and it was the fact of it was hard to refuse when you were working kind of in the area that I was working on. And the only thing I would have found was travelling after doing, going to training 2 or 3 nights a week. And I would have felt, like, I was going to training and I was in Tubbercurry on a Sunday morning for training at 10:30.
Yeah.
And things like that, like I just say to myself now, overstepping it, and a couple other clubs in onto me and one thing or another. And it wasn't the fact that I had any magic wand or whatever the case may be. I suppose maybe it's the fact that they felt that maybe this discipline, maybe might help out in some way or another. And as I said, I didn't never hold any grudges as such with the discipline end of it. And it wouldn't be the same, Connor, for me at any stage, and not taking anything away from any other clubs or county or anything else. The fact that your own's your own, you have to learn the names of the other outsiders and all the rest, and it's just not as enjoyable, or you don't get the same fun out of it as what I would expect to get, and I suppose one could say to you, well, you often said you've been there and done it, and it's not really like that, but I think you have to give somebody else a chance, or somebody else has to pick up the mantle and go ahead with it. And that's really why I made up my mind in '84, and that's where I came out of the end at that stage.
And then you took a year off, but then the year after that, I suppose the big one came calling. You were told or asked to take over the realms of the inter-county team. While we will talk about that in your 3 years involved, it's just important we mention the 1982 under-21 All-Ireland success. Obviously, it was the first All-Ireland that came back to this county. You were the man in charge alongside Donal Monaghan and Michael Lafferty. And also, we have to say that there were four Masters men on the starting team. So there was Michael McBurty, Shamie Meehan, Joyce McMullen, and Michael Kelly. So, what can you tell us about that, particularly the final in Leitrim that day, or that year?
Well, it was great to get there, and the support that we had, and the finals are final, and you just keep thinking all the time, build up to it, and will it happen and whatnot. The players as well on that, in my opinion, were something else, because the commitment they give as well, and the way they train, no more than the club. I didn't show anything different as far as the thing was concerned. Maybe that was one of the reasons that I did get the job as such, but I give it my all, and it was great on the day, when you'd see tears running around people's eyes and all the rest after the game and coming and, you know, hugging their loved ones and all that kind of stuff. And it was great. It was good for the county. And I think it was not because it was me, I think it was a breakthrough that the county needed, because they had talent and had plenty, a lot of good players and great ability. But there's no doubt about it. Like I would have to say, you know, the great crop of players, because, you know, like the ones that I had, and then been away for 3 years, whatever the case may be, from them, and I suppose them partying whatever way they liked it wasn't on my list, but they so much of a change and certain things had to be done when I went back into the senior level, and it wasn't that you were holding anything back from them or anything like that, but I think it was a foundation, I think, to football in Donegal. Lots of ones say it was, you know, like when I had was maybe 20 odd players that I would have having, and that 21 would have nearly made the senior panel again, you know.
Yeah, and you also, as you said there, you took kind of your you know, your philosophy that you had at Four Masters, that, you know, players had to be on time, no one was above the rest. I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, but Donald Reid, who played for the county, he wrote in his book there last year about one time coming from work in Bundoran to train in Donegal town, and you had the gates locked and he started climbing over the fence and you sent him home. Yeah, so again, it was the same kind of philosophy that, you know, all players had to abide by the rules.
Well, this was it, Conor, you know, like as well. You have players maybe that didn't have transport, that would even summoned to training on a Saturday morning, and Donegal, you know, like another. There was nothing really laid on big time as such. I would feel, you know, nowadays, well, the way you look at it, in my opinion, some players are fortunate, you know, like, and they create a bond. They'll team up with one another and they'll make their way and they'll make sure that somebody's standing back, that he'll step in to take his place and get in there and not be looking for an excuse not to be there. But I would feel as well that it has changed, and I don't know whether it's for the good or not, of a lot of things. And I would feel, you know, maybe training's at a standard now. How long are players going to last? That'll be my fear and worry about the whole thing. Because, I mean, if you have to start training at maybe 6 in the morning, go and do a bit of work and train that night again or whatever the case may be. And I suppose that's maybe what's expected now at the moment. But I think it's not great for the football end of it, you know, in my opinion, Conor. But you can't expect your young players in one thing or another to give up the life and maybe not even get a game and maybe nothing happening. And, you know, they're doing the same for their club and they can't divide themselves up. And I know Dolan's thing was right as well, you know, like, but I just had to take a stand and saying that it reminds me of another evening, and it was so funny. Michael Lester was there interviewing us, and it was before, an actual fact, it was before the game against Tyrone, and
in '89.
Yeah, and it was unfortunately for bereavement and Townawally that was on, and my physio landed at the training with the hearse, and he suggested, I think it was to Donald or Raymond Harvey, I'm not right sure, does this happen here all the time? If the physio has to come in this? Well, he says, you know, it doesn't happen all the time, but it would nearly happen sometimes. But, you know, things like that, there was a funny end of it too. It wasn't all that serious, Conor, you know. Yeah. And that guy would have been probably christened the fact too of moving around at night or different things like that. Not really punishing them or anything like that, but at least, you know, you had to get them out of the grooves they were in and one thing and another. And I was coming through a town one night, and there's one of the players, and a little bit intoxicated, not much, and stopped him and asked him how his things going. He says, great. He says, boss, he says, I'm only down at the shop for a pint of milk. So at least it spoiled his night as well.
Yeah.
But
You weren't telling him to come home, but you weren't telling him to go home, but he kind of knew.
I was just letting him know. No, there were some great times, and the club and the people in the club, from chairmanship and secretaries and all giving their time and giving so much of their time. And a lot of ones, times people might think, that it's not right and it's not this. That might, no more than me being involved in football, they might see that it has to be done that way. But I think if you can treat players with respect, it's important as well, because they're the boys that are going to go out in the field for you. I know you have to have the other rule, discipline and all the rest, but I think if you don't have it, you have another problem in your hands as well,
And when you eventually did take the senior team, the county senior team in 1986, firstly, we'd say you took over from Brian McAnuff. What was your, firstly, before we get into your time managing Donegal, what was your relationship at the time with Brian McAnuff? Because I know he was manager of Bundoran, and there was a big rivalry there. What was the relationship at the time?
Well, the relationship would have been, it wouldn't be that bad, but I suppose it would be the fact that while we won the championship in '84, we played them and Balbuffet, and it was I think we won by a point or 2 points or whatever. And Brian, he insinuated that it was a draw, so I suppose there was no harm in that either. But we put up a banters and all the rest, like players against players and one thing and another, and we always could say hello after the games or whatever the case may be, because not but to say that he would have been managing Joyce and Michael Kelly and different ones. So I mean, he'd been managing Dolan this time too as well, and that was good enough, like as long as you can speak and you're going to have the rivalry and all the rest as well.
But he would have been he would have been supportive when you took over the intercounty team, yeah.
Yeah, he probably wouldn't have been happy that he didn't get another term. No more than when my term came to an end, I went again. Maybe I shouldn't have, but I felt that was in '89. I would have felt that Donegal could win in All Ireland at 90 or 91, and I thought maybe they missed the boat then, but lo and behold, and thank God they didn't, that the players were there to do it. If the commitment was still there and things happening, and which did happen as well, and I was glad for that end of it. But I was disappointed, no point about it, I was disappointed that I didn't get another term, I suppose no more than Brian was when I took over, and we'd be quite friendly even yet, and occasionally he'd ring me there and speak about football and all the rest, but he would know that I'm just having the same heart in it as was in the past,
Yeah, and do you think when you were, I suppose, intercounty manager, again, I go back to you use the same philosophy with the discipline and the players, but do you think that worked ultimately? Because I know you brought an awful lot of them under 21 players that you had in 1982. You brought them into the senior team, and I suppose they made a name for themselves, like Martin McHugh, Anthony Malloy, Martin Shovlin, Matt Gallagher, Joyce McMullen, players like that. But you also had to drop a lot of them, people like Charlie Mulgrew, Manus Boyle. Do you think you had the full backing of the players after '89 because you dropped an awful lot of these players?
I think I had, Conor, because the fact that they realised that it had to be done as such, say even Charlie Mulgrew or even Marty Carlin running that I would have dropped.
They claim they were dropped because they played a, you might know better than me, they say they were dropped because they played a football game, a soccer game.
Yeah, it was mainly, to be honest, was rugby, and it was one of the Gales and Letterkenny that would have been insistent that I would have let them play. So, but we had a game coming up 10 days afterwards, and it was just going to be very hard because I was training all these boys to have them right and all the rest, which did happen, and lo and behold, then if they were going to go out and play and get injured, and who was I going to turn to? So that was my main reason. It wasn't that anything against sport or anything else, but it was just the fact, and I did make it clear at times that one or the other, I don't have a problem with this. And so if you can see your way of playing the Gaelic, whatever it is, by all means. But as long as you're kicking a ball or involved in sport, it's the main thing, you know.
Did you feel you underachieved as involved with the senior team? You did bring them from Division 2 to competing in Division 1. Do you think you underachieved, or do you think you deserved more time there?
Well, I thought I would have might have got it, you know, like, but in fairness, at the end of the day, the team that I had was they were capable, you know, like, I know we had a few injuries, but you can't go down that road at the end of the day, and luck plays a big part as well. But on the other hand, I never really complained about referees or anything like that, but I would have felt we were unfairly treated that day in Clonus, from even before the game to after the game, you know. And I couldn't understand some of the results of the referee, and that was he was there to do a job, I was there to do a job, but it was very hurting at the time for things to happen the way they did. And as I say, we're in a final, and then we got beaten in the replay, and I suppose that was a big one. It was a good chance that year, in my opinion, because you're coming up against, you know, a team that maybe you could have made to the semi-final or the final.
Yeah, but then you also had a, I suppose around 9 years later, maybe around 97, there was rumours that you were going to return to the county scene. PJ McGowan left as the county manager, and there was rumours that you and Anthony Malloy were going to take the realms. Was that ever a consideration in your mind? Did you ever debate going back?
No. Well, a lot of ones would have said, Conor, and there was a lot of pressure on about it, you know, about it happening and all the rest. But, you know, at the end of the day, I don't think it would have made a great team, because, well, we probably have been going down the same road. But as I did say to Anthony, and I would be quite close friend with him as such, and it's funny now that he's in the council and on the opposite side of the room. But anyway, I just told him that if I could be of any help quietly, as far as he would be the manager, it was his job and all the rest, I would help him in any way I could with ideas or speak to players and like that. And I felt, you know, like, you know, at that level, the boss is the boss.
Yeah. And I suppose you didn't fully leave from football in the 1990s. You had spells at Sligo, so you did. Connacht football was very, very strong at that time. I think Sligo were the only county in the 1990s not to win a provincial championship. What was the reason of taking the Sligo job?
Yeah, well, as I say, Conor, been asked so often, you know, even my workplace up there with Cahalmy Roberts, I found it hard, and being involved in all that. But I also found it very hard for the Sligo man, Paul Clark, who would have been a really fanatic in football and all that, and he wanted somebody to come in and all that. But I would have felt nearly from word go it was going to be an uphill battle, and I didn't want to be having a battle all the time, you know, as far as football is concerned. The discipline end of it and the time consuming, plus the fact that the time that they would have to, players would have to be there, and commitment and all the rest, and some of the minds you were going to be really changing, I suppose, maybe because I never had them at underage or anything like that. But I just felt, I says, now, you know, like, who's running this show at the moment, and it was just in a way that maybe someone just didn't agree with what happened, and they were good players, and I don't think a lot of them maybe mightn't at the time, nice players and all the rest, had the belief that they could do something, you know.
And then finally the big job, which was, I think, your last time as a manager of a senior team was with St. Noel's. What was the reason for travelling a couple of miles up the road to Moncharles?
Well, I think really, you know, like in the beginning, I suppose maybe I didn't put a lot of thought into it. Yeah. I said it would help in any way that I could. And as I say, with I would have having a lot of some of the players at under 21 level playing for me for the county, and I would have played with some of the other players that myself with fathers before the way back, and I just say to myself now, if I can be of any assistance here, I will, and I'll give it a try anyway. And it was 3 or 4 or 5 players that came to me and kind of tried, give us a while anyway, or try it. We would like to do some of the things that you've done with other teams and all the rest. And they weren't bad, as far as I'm concerned. I couldn't knock on them or anything, because it was a whole lifestyle change and one thing or another. And at that particular time too, I was kind of committed, being in Dublin in different times and all the rest. And the fact was that I was maybe coming to training and having the training and all the rest, maybe missing players that I would have felt could have been there.
Yeah.
And here was me, why I was only filling in, and it wasn't good for their club or anything else, and it was nothing against. And even when we played, played against Four Masters, it wasn't the easiest thing to do, but I just done what I had to do, and fair play on the day. Four Masters won it, and there's nothing just I could do about it. But they had gone on well, and it would have improved. I think it might have rubbed off on some of them that this was the only way to go, and maybe they've went that way in the time to come, and younger players. In actual fact, I have a grandchild at the moment, and he's playing for St. Knowles, and I think he's nearly 6 foot at the moment, 14 years of age. So probably would have followed, same year, he probably would have followed some of mine's example in height wise and all that. Doing quite well, and I think their underage structure is doing good as well. No more, as I say, Connor, that's where it is to start, and that's where it is to work,
Yeah, talking about, I suppose, before we finish up, you've spoken out on radio not too long ago about the GAA, particularly at underage, at club level, becoming too professional, and it's almost ruining the game. What would you hold that opinion strongly? Like, do you feel it's not as good as what it used to be when you were involved?
No, I would feel, Connor, at that age group now, I'm proven to be wrong of a goes that. The fact is, at that age, you're an underage football. You're there to enjoy it. You're not there to be doing a good part of maybe what under 21s or seniors are doing. You couldn't be expected to do it. I think in actual fact, what you be doing, like you could have your little session of training, and I'm a great believer, this training and out through different things and different ways of doing it. And I think it draws on hamstrings, and even at that age group, because they're stretching so much. I mean, I've saw times there, Mike, went and watched training. I was standing well back, maybe nobody might know I'm there, but you know yourself. The only thing is, like, you can stretch so far, it's like an elastic band, but you keep stretching year after year and all the rest. And I would also happen to say one time, I was with a club that I was with, said to me about cones and all. And I said, no, they're not allowed to eat ice cream when they're training. I would have no big time for some of this. And maybe I'm wrong. I think if they go back to the training, enjoying it. And the other thing is a certain amount of football. And because that makes things sing and hum and all the rest. And I don't mind drills and all the rest. But I think it's been tied in too much, Connor, with the fact of senior training. It's leading a bad example. Some of the things about early morning, going to the pools and different things like that. And I can see different boys there, they have to do so much training there. Even 14, 15-year-olds, some of the seniors. Well, there's nobody stamina can stand up to, the same as Michael Murphy and different other players at the moment that are fully developed and all, to be going down through that. I'm not saying they're all at it, but from what I can gather, they don't seem to be getting the enjoyment out of it. training anymore, you know.
And what about at senior level? Of course, like when you were involved, and if you ask any of your former players, I mean, when they trained, they trained properly. They trained, the trainings used to be brutal, as some players would describe it. But would you say now it's gone beyond total professional? It's gone completely over the top, or how would you regard senior training now and the game itself at senior level?
Well, I would think so, Connor. Like there's so many different rules and regulations, and I think to play. I think you could still win a championship. If you're playing a longer ball and players weren't getting it as physical. Like if young players in the forward line now, and I mean, you have a player maybe twice his age marking him. Well, his idea is, I'm not going to let you get the ball and knock on or jump in or whatever the case may be. And I would say, you see, they're all going to have to get back, back to normal as such. Like some of the things I introduced was probably the fact of trying to do away with, if you had a break in training and, maybe for five minutes or whatever it was and change around, if you're playing backs and forwards or whatever it was, at that, and a lot of them stages, players were going for a smoke.
Yeah.
Or maybe sitting down with somebody, ones that were on the pitch and all the rest, and having a smoke. Well, like, I'm not anti-cigarettes because I'm off them or anything like that, or cigars, but, I think maybe that wouldn't be a great thing either. And I don't think there's not enough morale in it. And the other thing I would say is that the enjoyment doesn't seem to be there. Plus the fact, I would feel I've nothing against players getting anything and everything, jerseys or different things and all the rest. But I think that in moderation, to the fact, I do see a lot of players and I do hear a lot of things about sponsorship and all that. The players leave tops behind them and, different bottoms and tracksuits and all the rest. And I mean, it's not going to make a player good as such, I think the other thing, and I don't mean starvation or anything with gear or anything like that, and they deserve all they can get. But I mean, I would feel there's other ways it could be treated well. It's a fact of, to enjoy it more and maybe a cup of tea and whatever the case may be after training or something like that, or a mineral or, whatever it need to be going. And that'll be my idea of it, because I've in fact, it seems to become whenever you're watching there, even at the training and all the rest. I know you don't have to have wildness around because they're at school still, and the other thing, they're disciplined at home. But I mean, if it starts at a time, it starts at it. And if it finishes at a time, it finishes. I'm a firm believer if training finishes at 8 or 8:30, if that's the time it finishes, and that they should be in the house at 9 or whatever the case may be.
And finally, like you talked earlier there about, I suppose, Four Masters nowadays are in a transition, similar to what they were, I suppose, when you played back in the 70s, and then this, all it took was a few players to come along, and the whole attitude and culture of the club changed. So what do Four Masters, do you believe, now have to do to get back to winning ways like they were when you were involved as manager?
Well, Conor, I would feel, you can name the like of players like that, them and everybody else knows them, that through injury or through age and one thing or another, too many went at the one time.
Yeah.
And that left a big hole in it. And you have a lot of players away at which I feel it's very important, education, and I wouldn't be trying to preach it or anything. But at the end of the day, what's for a footballer if he not able to carry a bit of education with him and whatever, getting a good job and all the rest? Because I have a feeling a lot of things go, like you're great when you're playing, try and get you something, but then there's, it's the other hand then that somebody else comes along and you don't have the job. But I think Four Masters, even even this last 8 or 10 years, would have been slipping a wee bit maybe with underage coming through. I think they're coming through now at the moment, to be honest. I watched a couple of underage games there, and someone you can look very closely at. But the other thing is, and it'll be the same as in the years gone by, that you have the right people at the club, within the club, chairmanship and all that. Even in the last 8 or 10 years, it was the same. There's some great shared persons and one thing and another, and trainers and managers and all the rest. And you have to have a bit of luck, and you have to have players coming through. And that's one of the ways maybe that things is not what they are at the moment, because they're not. But I think, honestly, that the world, because from what I can gather at vocational level and all the rest, I think it's going to be an up and up again. And I can feel, like there's that little bit between different clubs now locally that will help younger players. And I would go as far as to say, there's lots of managers just don't get the breaks, and you can be lucky off days and on days and all the rest. But I would feel you have a lot of parents too as well that are very interested, and I think they'll lift the whole thing again. And I think it's the like of, well, maybe me and different other ones to go and watch these boys playing, or girls, because that's where it starts and finishes.
And the final question I'm going to ask you 2 questions now. So the final 2 I'm going to ask you and put you on the spot now. In your whole time involved in GAA as the manager of all different teams, what was the best memory for you? That's the first question.
What was the best memory? Well, I suppose one of the good memories would have been surely the All-Ireland, but the other thing was, and coming back to Donegal and to see what it meant to the people. I know it might have meant a lot to me and my mentors and all the rest, but I would say that the enjoyment out of the training and one thing and another paid off, and I would say I was very happy with that. I wouldn't single out even some of the games we won or some of the games we lost. And I suppose maybe some of the games we lost, I always went out of my way if we were playing a challenge game, because I think a challenge game's not a challenge game unless you're playing against a team that you can beat, or that they can beat you. And surely the most important thing is, I think, is that you're playing the team that is out to win. And I think it's good, and I would have felt what I would have done or helped the club, and my football thing would be the fact that it brought them up to a standard that everybody's trying to follow, and they are following it. And Donegal has produced some great players, Four Masters, and not to start naming them, and everybody knows them as all-stars and all the rest. And lo and behold, I would say there's more coming through, which they will, and I think people will speak to players, and the thing will change. Not a good time at the moment now, in fairness, but I think it will go well. And if they've, that's my opinion on it. I'm like Conor,
And the final question I was going to ask you, I wonder if you're going to answer it, but if you can, at the top of your head, out of all the players you managed, coached, was there ever the best player, greatest player you managed?
Well, probably the only thing I could say, there was a lot of players.
Can't nail down, no.
That were great, and you could go through them, and it's probably be a little bit unfair, to single them out. And you're right in asking the question. I wouldn't have to leave the Four Masters club to start naming. I wouldn't have to go too far in any direction, but there's no point in going down that road, because you'd be told about being biased and one thing or another. I don't mind that, but the one thing I would like to say, and I'm just not just saying it because I'm speaking to you this evening, I'm honoured to get speaking and to be with you at this interview. I think it's great. And I think there's not near enough of it being done, because anytime you hear about football or anything else, it's all about money.
Yeah.
finance, and all the rest. I know everybody's to try and survive, but I think there should be a lot more, Connor. Should be a lot more Connors doing things that you're doing. As you watch you on the field, up and down, and all the rest, and different other younger. That's great, and you always have to have it. I had it when I was involved. I maybe had 2 or 3 doing this or doing that, and somebody standing at the door, and nobody got out until all the jerseys were there, or whatever the case may be. Things like that. And the part that you're playing now at the moment, you may not realise it, but I think that is going to be the greatest thing that can happen to the club, because you're putting it out in front of the people and you're putting the club on the map. And I
Well,
was
Tom,
just like,
Tom, that makes me want to say you're my favourite interviewee. So thanks very much for that. That's an absolute compliment for me. Not too many people do that. So thanks very much for that.
I'll tell you the truth, it is me that would say that, because that's the way I feel. And if I didn't feel that way, I wouldn't say it. I think, I wouldn't expect anything else from the stock he came from.
Cheers, Tom. Tom, listen, it's always great to talk to you, and hope the work is going okay in the council, and we'll chat again soon, my friend.
I probably would have maybe felt that maybe I drew it out a bit long for you, but
no,
I just felt
Tom, that was brilliant, my friend, and thanks very much.